Hi, I'm Nikki, and this presentation is all about reading the parts of a chart. Later, we'll get into reading the energies of a chart, but first, we really need to understand where things are located and how to find them. So let's get started. The topics we'll discuss here are 1, what is a birth chart? 2, how do we erect one or get one? 3, what are the different house systems used to erect them? And 4, what are the parts of a chart? So what is a birth chart? A birth chart you may also hear people refer to as a natal chart, a star chart, an astrology chart. This is what they're talking about. And what it is it's just a snapshot of the sky when you were born. It's just where all the constellations were. Here are some examples if you were to look up the word birth chart or natal chart and Google it or search it out, you would see something like this. On the left is a Western astrology chart, and on the right is a Vedic astrology chart. And you can see that they look a little bit different, but they're both equally interesting. Now for the nerdy part. So we're going to break it down a bit. So just hang with me. This is an example of what we're talking about when we talk about a snapshot of the sky when you were born. So this is the constellations. Here we have the horizon line, and then you can see the circular ecliptic line. And that's where the sun follows the path around the earth. So you can see there on the left-hand side, there is the constellation of Leo. And so if this was a birth chart, we would say that this person is a Leo rising. And that is because the constellation of Leo is rising on the eastern horizon at the exact time of their birth. Now, minutes matter in astrology. The signs can change, every 2 hours. So even minutes can change your rising sign. And changing the rising sign can change your whole birth chart. So it's very important to know the exact minute that you were born if you are able to. This is a really cool example on the left of, you can see that the zodiac signs are coming up and over the eastern horizon, and they're changing rapidly. And you can see how the chart is changing as they are changing. So that's an example of how your chart could change if you were born at different times. And that's a 2D example, but on the right, we have a 3D example doing the exact same thing, but it's just kind of cool to see, in 3D instead of this little flat paper we see. All right, so how do we get a chart? What are we going to need? We're going to need your birth date, we're going to need your place of birth, and we're going to need the exact time you were born. What if I don't know it? This is a real question. Sometimes it's just not an option, and that's okay. You can still get a birth chart. On the left, you can see that there's a chart. It has lots of information, but it is not cut into pie slices, as we like to say. On the right, you'll see what I'm referring to as pie slices. And in the middle, you'll see a chart that has been cut up. So this one has a time, and so I can tell where each of these houses will be and how the chart will get cut up into different topics. So on the left, we have no birth time, but still a lot of information. And in the middle, we do have a birth time, and we can see that we now have even more information. So don't panic if you don't have it. All right, where do I go? So I've provided you a link that you can click and enter those 3 things, and bam, you got a beautiful little chart ready. If for some reason you don't want to use that link or you don't have it right now, you can just use these other 3 websites. There are plenty of them, but these 3 seem to be the most popular to get a birth chart. What are the house systems that we should be using, and how in the world do I choose one? Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. This is a huge topic in astrology, highly debated, and just log this conversation for later when you have more resources to decide this, or reference points, really. House systems. So there are so many different house systems, and here are just a few of the most popular that I'm aware of. And this is not even an extensive, exhaustive list. This is just a few. All right, how do I know which one to use? And really the short answer to this is any one you want. So if you are learning from a teacher and they have a preference, maybe start with that. And as you're learning, maybe you decide that you would prefer a different house system, go ahead with that one. My best advice that I can give you is to learn each house system thoroughly and then move on to another one. So different house systems have different rules that they follow, and it's kind of just like learning languages. So if we're learning German, we aren't going to then try to learn, Japanese at the exact same time and then mix the two languages together. All right, let's get into the parts of a chart so that you can actually read one. All right, here is a natal wheel, and this is from the website astro.com. This is the first one I ever pulled, and I really like the way that they use color. So I've chosen, I think they're a good beginner's wheel. Here's a natal wheel. It's plain. You can just see the house numbers. You can see I've colored them. So if we want to find the houses, we're just going to look inside the wheel. And right here, you can see all the numbers. These are the signs. On the outside of the wheel, you'll see these little glyphs, and those are just the zodiac signs. The planets are inside the houses, and you'll see those little glyphs. And then we've got angles. So someone will ask, your ascendant, your descendant, your midheaven, or your IC. Well, how do I find those? In a equal house system, such as whole sign, which just means that the pie slices are all equally distributed, whole sign literally uses whatever the ascendant is on, that eastern horizon constellation, whatever it is, it will use the entire first house for that zodiac sign. So if Leo was, like we saw in our picture, on the eastern horizon, my entire first house would be in Leo. In this chart, the entire first house is in Pisces. And this AS is how I know the degrees of my ascendant. Now, my ascendant and my descendant will always be exactly opposite each other. So I know that if my ascendant is at 10 degrees of Pisces, then my descendant will also be at 10 degrees, but in the other sign, so Virgo. My midheaven, which is this MC, is usually at the top of the chart. Now, in a whole sign house system, it could be floating. But in this chart, it is in the 10th house. So I find the MC. It is at 23 degrees, so I know that it is exactly opposite my IC. So I know that my IC is also 23 degrees, and it's in Gemini. Now, we're going to talk about the exact same topic, but using a different house system, so a different way of splitting up that pie slice. And this one is called Placidus. So here you can see there's no AS or AC, and there's no MC. So how in the world, if someone asks me, what's my ascendant sign? How do I find it? Well, we're going to look at the first house. And in Placidus, this first line sets the ascendant. So I know that my ascendant in this chart is 10 degrees of Pisces. And I know exactly opposite is 10 degrees of Virgo. So that must be my DC, my descendant. My midheaven in Placidus is always the 10th house cusp, this line by the 10th house. And if I follow it up, I can see that I'm, 17 degrees of Sag. I know my IC, which always is the 4th house cusp in Placidus, it's Gemini because it's always opposite. These, like you heard me say, the house cusp, that's what those are, those lines. They're called house cusps, and they're just the way we split up the pie slice. So this is the first house cusp, the second house cusp, the third house, and so on. And here's a closer view. We can see there's our first house, and we see the line. And this confused me when I began. So it's always the line before the number, right? So first house would be 26 degrees in Taurus. So my first house cusp is 26 degrees Taurus. My second house cusp, if I follow it here, 23 degrees in Gemini. If I'm looking at a whole sign chart, don't let this confuse you, because you will go and you will look and you will say, oh, all of my house cusps are 0. Well, yes, that's because in this whole sign, it's the whole sign is that first. So again, in Placidus will actually have numbers on the house cusps. and how whole sign will not. It will just be a sign, really. Then if you want to read down, Astro.com has these little charts at the bottom. So if you want to figure out quickly how to read this, would be, you can find, let's see, Jupiter, and we can read that Jupiter is 23 degrees in Libra. And this is just an easy way. Down here, this is your AC is ascendant, MC is midhaven, and then you can see that the cusps, the second house cusp, again, this is a whole sign chart, so they're all at 0. But if this was Placidus, those would be different numbers. Elements. So the elements repeat in a pattern around the chart, and I really like Astro.com because they color code them. So when you're learning, this is a really easy way to learn. So all the fire signs are in red, all of the earth signs are in green, and all of the air signs are in yellow, water signs in blue. And you can tell, okay, Sag is a fire sign, it's red. Cap is an earth sign, it's green. It's just really easy to read. The modes really relate to the seasons, and they are in a cross pattern. So you'll see them like this. So I know that if I am looking at this fixed sign of Taurus, I know that its opposite is going to also be fixed, and I know that 90 degrees will be fixed, and I know that this way 90 degrees will also be fixed. So I know that if I want to find all the fixed signs, I can just find the cross pattern. And the same thing with cardinal. So I know, okay, let's see, Libra's cardinal. Okay, opposite of it will also be cardinal in Aries, and I know that in Cap here, in Cancer here, that will be cardinal. So that's a good little trick for your eye to kind of learn. Each mode has one of the elements. Each mode has each element. So you've got Taurus, and it's fixed earth. Then you've got Leo, it's fixed fire. Then you've got Scorpio, fixed water, and Aquarius, fixed air. So there's that cross we were talking about, but we can see the colors, right? We know it's all fixed energy. It's in the cross, but we know that the different elements are going to change the energy. This little chart down here is how you can quickly read that energy too. It's a nice way to really quickly just browse over someone's chart and get the feeling for it. So I can read it and be like, okay, fire, air, earth, water, cardinal, fixed, mutable. Okay, this person has quite a bit of fixed energy. You see all this going down. So that's quite a bit of fixed energy. I can also see that going this way, that's a lot of fire energy. So that's cool too. And then I can see that there's a bit of earth, and you've got not so much water, right? It's a really easy way to see that. Aspects are just the connections made between points. They're degrees. So we've got all of them here. We've got 0 degrees is a conjunction, 60 degrees is a sextile, a square is 90, a trine is 120, an opposition is 180, and then there's more that you can find down here. Okay, if we wanted to see the energy between Mars and Mercury, we would read this as Mars is in a trine, this blue line, with Mercury. And again, Astro.com does a really nice job of color coding things. The red lines are squares or oppositions. And then these blue lines, we can tell that they're sextiles or trines. So again, the color coding is really nice. Here is a little chart on how to read that. This was like another language to me when I got here, when I started reading charts. So let me just show you how easy this is. If I want to read the energy of Mars right here, I'm going to follow it along and just read all these little symbols. So I can say that Mars is trine, this blue triangle, Mercury. I can also see that Mars is sextile, Venus. I can say that Mars is square, the sun, that's a little square, it's 90 degrees. We can say that Mars is opposite Jupiter. I can say that Mars is opposite Neptune. I can say that Mars is square, this little square, Uranus. And I can just keep going down and finding all the information about this planet. If I wanted to really quickly see what aspects my moon made, I would look right here at moon, and then I would just follow it down. Oh, a nice trine, a sextile. You can just read it really quickly, a little conjunction. And then we can do the same here. We can see that the moon and the sun, oh, they don't have anything because there's nothing in this box where they meet. If someone asks you, this is really common for the astrology community to talk about your big three, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about their sun, moon, and rising. So again, this is a whole sign chart. We can see that it's got 0, 0, 0, 0, and just signs, zodiac signs. So I want to find the ascendant. I'm going to look for AC or AS. And right here, I can tell that I am a 10-degree Pisces rising. And if I want to find my sun sign, I look for the symbol, that's sun. And here it is in Sag at 23 degrees and 15 minutes. If I want to find my moon, I look for the little moon glyph. And then here it is with 8 degrees in Aries and 59 minutes. And if this was a Placidus chart, which I can tell because the house cusps actually have numbers on them, not zeros. Remember, the first line, the house cusp, is our ascendant in a Placidus chart. So if you don't see an AC or an AS, just look for this first number on the first house cusp. That is your rising sign. So this person would be a 26-degree Taurus rising. All right, so let's just go one more time to wrap it all up so we can just cement that info in, because there was a lot of information. So here is a natal chart, and around the circle, these are the zodiac signs. Inside, the numbers show the houses, and then all the little glyphs around, those are the planets. So we've got planets, signs, houses, and then the relationship between those planets. That's what those lines are talking about. And if I want to find them, what they are, I can just look at this chart. If I want to find the energy of them, whether they're fixed, I'm going to look up here. And if they're fire, air, earth, or water, I'm going to look here. Or I can look at the colors. The cusps will be on the outside of the chart. There'll be little numbers right here in Placidus. This chart's in the whole sign, so there's no numbers around it because the entire sign of Taurus is the first house, and the entire sign of Gemini is the second house. If I was in Placidus, the first house cusp would be this 26 degrees of Taurus. That's what you would see. You'd see the first line would be 26 degrees of Taurus. All right, well, thank you for making it through that lecture. If you have any questions, just shoot me a message or leave any comments down below and we can address them for you. And I look forward to meeting you in the next lecture. Thanks.